She thought her marriage was perfect until one shocking discovery shattered her world. Temira, a loving wife, never expected her best friend to betray her in the most heart-wrenching way possible. What happened next? It will leave you speechless. This is a story of love, betrayal, and the ultimate revenge. Temira was a gentle soul, known across the village of Gorabe for her beautiful smile and the magic she created with her sewing needle. From a young age, she had used her skills to help others, mending torn clothes for children, creating wedding gowns from scraps, and never asking for more than a kind word or a smile in return. Her heart was pure, and her dreams simple: to love and be loved, and to build a peaceful life. So when Kweku, the charming and ambitious young merchant, asked for her hand in marriage, the entire village rejoiced. Kweku was everything a young woman could dream of: tall, strong, with a voice that could calm a crying baby, and eyes that sparkled with dreams of the future. He had returned to Gorabe after years of working in the city markets, bringing with him stories, laughter, and a vision for a better life. When he laid eyes on Temira at the village square one sunny morning, he was captivated, and Temira, though shy at first, was drawn to his warmth and his genuine admiration for her craft. Their courtship was short but sweet. Kweku would wait outside her small tailoring shop every evening, carrying her basket home while they talked about stars, hopes, and how they wanted their future to look. He praised her work, encouraged her dreams, and spoke of building a life where they could grow together, not just in love, but in purpose. Temira felt safe with him, seen, appreciated, and deeply loved. The day of their wedding was like a festival. The drums beat loud and joyful, the women danced with flowers in their hair, and even the elders wept with happiness. The sun shone brightly, as if blessing their union. Temira wore a gown she stitched herself, simple, elegant, and filled with love. Kweku, in his deep blue agbada, held her hand tightly, promising a lifetime of devotion. The entire village of Gorabe sang their names that day. To everyone, they were the perfect couple. People whispered that love like theirs was rare, a blessing from the ancestors. Their home was filled with laughter and warmth, and every evening, Temira would prepare Kweku's favorite yam stew while he told her tales of his trade. Life seemed full of promise, and Temira believed with all her heart that this was the beginning of something beautiful, something forever. What she didn't know was that the winds of betrayal were already stirring, and the love she cherished so deeply was about to be tested in ways she could never imagine. Zulani had been by Temira's side since they were little girls chasing butterflies through the meadows of Gorabe. They had grown up together, shared secrets under the baobab tree, and cried on each other's shoulders during the toughest moments of life. So when Temira got married to Kweku and moved into her new home, it felt natural for Zulani to become a part of that world too. She wasn't just a best friend, she was like a sister, someone Temira trusted with her heart and soul. Everyone in the village knew the bond between the two women. Wherever you saw Temira, Zulani wasn't far behind. Their laughter was like music in the air, and when they worked together at the little tailoring shop, it was like watching magic happen. Zulani didn't have the same gift for sewing, but she was good with people, charming, clever, and quick with her words. She helped customers feel at home, managed the shop when Temira was busy with designs, and brought a fresh energy that lifted the business even more. Temira was grateful. With Zulani's help, the shop flourished. Orders came from nearby villages, and people spoke of the beautiful friendship that turned into a powerful partnership. At home, Zulani was just as helpful, running errands, cooking when Temira was tired, and even helping Kweku with his market work when he needed it. She would laugh and joke with him like an old friend, and Temira never once doubted her loyalty. Why would she? Zulani was family. She had stood by her through everything. Kweku too welcomed Zulani with open arms. He would often call her little sister and thank her for supporting Temira. The three of them formed a close-knit circle, and their home was always full of laughter, meals shared together, and dreams discussed late into the night. Temira was happy, truly happy, and felt blessed to have both a loving husband and a best friend under the same roof. But sometimes, behind smiles, there are shadows. And though Temira's heart was wide open with love and trust, she didn't see the flickers in Zulani's eyes when Kweku walked into the room. She didn't notice the moments Zulani lingered a little too long in conversation with him, or the way her laugh changed in his presence. After all, Zulani was her best friend, her sister. Nothing could ever go wrong, or so she thought. At first, Zulani truly felt happy for Temira. She had watched her best friend fall in love and build a life many women in Gorabe only dreamed of. Kweku was caring, charming, and ambitious, everything Zulani had hoped for in her own future husband. But as time passed, something began to shift deep inside her heart. Each time she saw Temira and Kweku laughing together, each time Kweku reached out to touch Temira's hand or kissed her cheek as he passed, Zulani felt a quiet sting. It started as a whisper, an emotion she couldn't name, but that whisper slowly grew louder, turning into something dark. Zulani didn't want to admit it, not even to herself. She kept smiling, kept helping in the shop, kept laughing at Kweku's jokes, but inside her heart was heavy. She began to compare herself to Temira. Wasn't she just as beautiful, just as kind? Why did love come so easily for Temira and not for her? Why had Kweku chosen Temira when she had been right there too all along? These questions festered in her mind like wounds that refused to heal. Every day she watched their love bloom, and every night she returned to her small room at the back of the house with a growing emptiness. Kweku would pass by her without noticing her new hairstyle, or the way she dressed, or how she lingered just a little longer in the hallway, hoping he'd say something. He was polite, always respectful, but never more than that. And that hurt Zulani more than she cared to admit. Instead of distancing herself to heal, Zulani drew even closer. She offered to take over more duties at the shop so Temira could rest. She cooked Kweku's favorite dishes and acted as though she was just being helpful. She masked her envy with overkindness, always pretending to care more than she truly did. Her smile never faded, but inside, something was cracking. What started as silent longing soon turned into obsession. Zulani began studying their relationship, how Temira treated Kweku, what made him smile, what made him angry. She began to convince herself that she could love him better, that she could be the woman he truly deserved. In her mind, Temira had simply been lucky, but Zulani believed she could earn that love. Yet, she said nothing. She kept pretending. Every day, she stood beside her best friend, knowing deep down she was starting to betray her. But the heart wants what it wants, even when it's wrong. And Zulani's heart was no longer innocent. It was hungry for something forbidden. At first, Kweku didn't pay much attention to Zulani beyond the usual friendliness. She was Temira's best friend, almost like a sister in the house, and he respected that. But slowly, without even realizing it, his eyes started lingering a little longer. Maybe it was the way Zulani laughed at all his jokes, or how she always seemed to be around when Temira wasn't. Maybe it was the way she dressed differently now, more vibrant, more daring, or the way her compliments felt sweeter than usual. Whatever it was, Kweku began to notice. It started with harmless conversations, just a few extra minutes talking after dinner, or sharing stories while Temira was busy in the shop. Zulani knew exactly how to get his attention. She laughed a little louder, leaned in a little closer, and always made him feel important. She knew when to flatter and when to listen, and Kweku, proud and hungry for praise, began to enjoy it more than he should have. Soon, he found himself looking for her. When he came home, he noticed her before he noticed his wife. If she wasn't around, he felt a strange emptiness, and when she was, he smiled more. Temira, always busy and focused on their shop, didn't notice the quiet shift. She trusted both of them completely. She believed in their loyalty, never imagining betrayal could grow in a place so full of love. Kweku's feelings grew slowly, but steadily. He told himself it was nothing. He was just being friendly. He loved Temira, didn't he? But each time Zulani brushed past him or offered a sweet compliment, a small part of him wanted more. The lines between right and wrong began to blur. He started asking her to accompany him to the market, even when it wasn't necessary. He offered her little gifts, just small things, nothing suspicious. But in his heart, he knew he was crossing a line. There was one evening that changed everything. Temira had gone to visit her mother in the next village, leaving Zulani and Kweku alone in the house. It should have been a normal night, but the silence, the shared glances, and the unspoken feelings hanging in the air made everything feel different. Zulani cooked his favorite meal, and Kweku couldn't stop staring at her. When their hands brushed as she passed him a bowl, neither of them pulled away. That night, the tension between them became too loud to ignore. Kweku told himself it was just temptation, that it would pass, that he'd never act on it. But deep down, something had already shifted. The bond he shared with Temira was no longer whole, and the door to betrayal had been opened, just a crack, but enough for everything to begin falling apart. It started with whispers in the dark, small touches, stolen glances, and secret meetings that turned into something dangerous. Kweku and Zulani, once just friends under the same roof, had now become something else, something hidden and shameful. The guilt weighed on Kweku at first, but Zulani always knew the right words to calm him. "No one will know," she whispered. "We're not hurting anyone." And slowly, the guilt turned into desire. They began meeting when Temira was away at the market or visiting her sick aunt. Zulani cleverly suggested Temira take more tailoring orders from nearby villages, even offering to watch the shop herself while Temira ran errands. She made sure Temira was always occupied, always distracted, while she and Kweku grew bolder in their betrayal. Kweku, once a man who cherished his wife, now found himself entangled in a web of lies. He kissed Zulani in corners where no one could see. He held her hand under the table when Temira wasn't looking, and with every secret touch, he drifted further away from the woman who had once been his whole world. He still smiled at Temira, still told her he loved her, but his heart had already split in two. Zulani, on the other hand, felt victorious. She had wanted Kweku for so long, and now she had him. But she wasn't satisfied with just being the hidden woman. Deep down, she didn't just want Kweku's body. She wanted his life, his home, his name. She wanted to be the wife, not the secret. And so, she continued to twist things quietly behind the scenes. She planted small doubts in Kweku's mind about Temira. "She's always so busy," she would say softly. "Do you ever feel like she doesn't see you anymore?" And slowly, Kweku began to believe her lies. Temira, innocent and trusting, noticed little things but brushed them off. She thought Kweku was just tired, or that Zulani was just being extra helpful. She never imagined her best friend and her husband could betray her like this. Her heart was full of love and trust, and that trust blinded her from the truth right in front of her eyes. As the affair continued, the lies grew thicker. Kweku started coming home later, claiming business delays. Zulani began wearing his favorite colors and calling him by soft nicknames when Temira wasn't around. The house that once felt full of love now held secrets in every corner. And the worst part was, Temira still smiled, still cooked for them both, still thanked Zulani for being such a loyal friend. But behind that friendship, behind those thank yous and smiles, betrayal was blooming like poison. And while Zulani and Kweku thought they were being clever, they didn't know that secrets never stay buried forever. The rain came down hard that evening, beating against the rooftops of Gorabe like angry drums. Temira had gone to a neighboring village for a dress fitting, but the appointment was cancelled due to the storm. Tired, soaked, and eager to surprise her husband with her early return, she hurried home through the muddy paths, holding her shawl tightly around her shoulders. She smiled to herself, thinking of how happy Kweku would be to see her back earlier than expected. She even thought about bringing some roasted groundnuts from the market for him, his favorite. But as she approached the house, something felt off. The windows were slightly ajar despite the rain. The curtains moved strangely, as if someone had pulled away from them too fast. She paused. Her heart began to beat faster. Still, she shook off the feeling and stepped inside quietly, not wanting to wake anyone if they were napping. She placed her bag down gently and made her way toward the bedroom, hoping to surprise Kweku. That's when she heard it. Soft laughter, not hers. A woman's giggle followed by Kweku's unmistakable voice, low and intimate. Her footsteps froze. Her breath caught in her throat. With trembling hands, she pushed the bedroom door open, and what she saw crushed her heart into pieces. There they were, Zulani, her best friend, the sister she never had, wrapped in the arms of her husband. Both half-dressed, their faces twisted with shock when they saw her standing there, soaked to the bone, eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the storm outside, as if the heavens themselves were crying for her. Temira's legs gave way, and she held onto the doorframe for support. Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "How could you?" she asked, not just looking at Kweku, but at Zulani too. The pain wasn't just from betrayal. It was from the people she loved most, tearing her heart in two. Zulani stumbled to cover herself, but the damage was done. Kweku opened his mouth to speak, but there were no words that could fix what had just happened. The truth had been laid bare, raw and ugly, and there was no going back. Tears mixed with rain on Temira's face as she turned and walked out, leaving them behind. Each step she took felt like walking through broken glass, but she didn't look back. Her world, once filled with love, laughter, and loyalty had been destroyed in a single moment. She had trusted too much, loved too deeply, and now stood alone, wounded but not broken. That night, under the cold rain, Temira knew life would never be the same again. But deep inside, something strong began to rise, a fire that betrayal could not kill. After the stormy night of betrayal, the days that followed felt even colder for Temira. Word spread quickly through the village of Gorabe, whispered in corners, murmured behind cupped hands. People who once greeted her with warmth now looked away or offered fake smiles. Some mocked her misfortune, blaming her for not keeping her husband close. The pain didn't stop at the betrayal. It grew in the silence of those she once called neighbors. Meanwhile, Zulani shamelessly moved into Temira's home, walking the same paths Temira once walked, now acting like the queen of a kingdom she stole. She walked through the market holding Kweku's hand, as if nothing had happened, wearing bold colors and wide smiles. Kweku, blinded by his lust and pride, acted as if he had done nothing wrong. He believed the world had moved on, and that Temira's silence meant weakness. But he was wrong. Temira, though heartbroken, chose dignity over drama. She quietly moved in with her cousin on the edge of the village. Every night she wept. Every morning she forced herself to rise. She still stitched clothes, even if her hands trembled. She still smiled at children, even if her heart was heavy. The pain didn't leave, but neither did her strength. Not everyone in the village joined the mockery. The wise elders, people who had seen many seasons and many storms, stood firmly by her side. Elder Bamid, the oldest man in Gorabe, was the first to visit her after the betrayal. He sat beside her, held her hand, and said, "My daughter, you are not broken, you are being shaped." His words were simple, but they reached deep into her soul. Others followed, Mama Jassa, Elder Kofi, and Auntie Mora, each offering small gifts, kind words, and quiet prayers. They knew the heart of Temira. They remembered her sacrifices, her loyalty, her love, and they reminded the villagers of who she truly was. Slowly, some began to turn their backs on Zulani and Kweku's shameless display. Whispers turned from gossip to guilt. Some women stopped buying from Zulani out of quiet protest. Some men no longer nodded at Kweku in greeting. The betrayal left a stain, not just on Temira's heart, but on Kweku's name. Temira still felt the ache, especially at night, but she also began to feel something else: respect, not from the loud crowd, but from those who mattered. And with every stitch she made in her little shop, she was sewing back the pieces of her broken life, thread by thread. She had been thrown aside, laughed at, and humiliated, but Temira was still standing. And the village began to see that maybe, just maybe, she was stronger than the two who betrayed her. It didn't take long for Kweku's perfect dream with Zulani to turn into a bitter nightmare. At first, everything seemed exciting, new, thrilling, even daring. But as the days passed, the mask that Zulani wore slowly began to slip. The sweet, helpful best friend that used to smile politely in Temira's home now showed her true face. She no longer tried to hide her sharp tongue or her demanding ways. She controlled everything in the house, from what Kweku could eat to who he could speak to. What once felt like freedom now felt like a prison. Kweku would return home from the farm and find Zulani complaining about the neighbors, about the food, about how bored she was. She no longer helped with chores or offered warm conversation. Her laughter had turned into sarcasm. She mocked Kweku for being too soft and even started comparing him to other men in the village. Kweku tried to ignore it at first, thinking it was just stress or adjustment, but deep inside, he began to feel something he hadn't expected: regret. He thought of Temira more and more with each passing day, the way she used to greet him with a warm meal and a kind word, the way she listened, cared, and never judged. He remembered her sacrifices, her love, her patience, and he realized too late that he had given all that up for nothing but a lie wrapped in a pretty face. Zulani's betrayal didn't stop with Temira. Soon, Kweku discovered she had been meeting another man in secret, a trader from the nearby village who brought her fancy clothes and whispered promises. One evening, Kweku followed her, suspicion heavy in his chest, and what he saw shattered whatever was left of his pride. Zulani, the woman he ruined his marriage for, was laughing and holding hands with another man. His heart broke again, but this time he had no one to blame but himself. When he confronted her, Zulani didn't even bother denying it. She laughed in his face, saying, "You left a queen for me, a storm. Now live with it." Her words hit him harder than any slap. The house that once felt like a prize now echoed with silence and shame. Kweku sat alone at night, staring at the empty chair where Temira used to sit, wondering how he could be so blind. Karma had arrived, not with thunder, but with quiet heartbreak. Zulani showed him no mercy, no love, only the bitter taste of betrayal, and Kweku finally understood the weight of what he had done. But by then, the damage was done. Temira had moved on, and Kweku, he was left with the one thing he never thought he'd face: loneliness. While Kweku was sinking in regret and Zulani was chasing shadows, Temira was quietly building something extraordinary. She had cried her tears, felt her pain, and now she was done looking back. With the little she had left and the strength of her spirit, she turned her sewing into a calling. Every day she stitched not just fabric, but purpose, pouring her emotions into bold patterns and beautiful designs. Her hands moved with new confidence, and her mind bloomed with creativity like never before. One day, Elder Moyo, a respected woman known across the region for mentoring young talents, walked into Temira's small tailoring shop. She had heard whispers of Temira's resilience and wanted to see her work. What she found surprised her. Not only were Temira's clothes skillfully made, but each piece told a story. Stories of strength, of endurance, of a woman who refused to break. Elder Moyo didn't hesitate. She offered to mentor Temira and help her build something bigger, a real fashion brand. With Elder Moyo's support, Temira rebranded her shop and began selling in other villages. Her designs were different from anything people had seen before. Her dresses blended traditional patterns with modern flair. Word spread like wildfire. Orders started pouring in. Soon her small shop couldn't keep up with the demand. She hired other women, widows, single mothers, and girls who had dropped out of school, and trained them in tailoring. What started as a one-woman show became a movement of empowerment. As her brand grew, so did her confidence. Invitations came for her to showcase her designs at cultural festivals and community markets. One day, at a grand festival in the town of Wakasa, a royal messenger approached her booth. Princess Emina of the Zambaro Kingdom had seen her work and was interested in commissioning outfits for a royal ceremony. Temira couldn't believe her ears. The girl who was once laughed at and cast aside was now designing for royalty. She traveled to the royal palace, her head held high, dressed in one of her own creations. Princess Emina was impressed not only by her talent, but by her humility. The princess introduced her to noblewomen and influential guests, opening doors Temira never dreamed of. Orders flew in from across regions. Her name began to carry weight, not just in Gorabe, but far beyond. People who once mocked her now sang her praises. Villagers who had turned away in shame now clapped when she passed. But Temira didn't grow proud. She remained kind, always remembering where she came from. She still visited the same elders who stood by her, still greeted the poor with love, and still mentored young girls like she once was. Temira had risen, not through revenge or hate, but through grace, hard work, and dignity. She didn't need to fight Zulani or curse Kweku. Her success was her answer, and oh, what a powerful answer it was. As the days passed, Kweku's life, once filled with hope and ambition, spiraled downward into total chaos. Zulani, whom he had trusted, had shown him nothing but deceit. When Kweku was at his lowest, thinking things might turn around, the final blow hit him. Zulani, the woman he had chosen over everything, took all the savings he had worked so hard for. She disappeared without a trace, leaving Kweku penniless and alone in a house that now felt like a prison of his own making. The money he had thought would buy him a better life was gone, and with it, his dignity. Kweku's friends, who had once supported him, now turned their backs, whispering behind his back. The villagers saw his fall from grace and no longer respected him. He was now just a man who had lost everything: his wife, his wealth, his pride. He wandered the streets, ashamed to show his face, remembering the days when Temira stood by him, loving him with all her heart, the same heart that he had broken, believing he could start anew with a woman who had only used him. Meanwhile, Temira's life had taken a turn so bright that it could blind anyone who had once doubted her. Her fashion brand had exploded into a massive success, and she had earned the respect of not only the village, but of people far beyond. She had become a symbol of strength, courage, and resilience. Her story of betrayal had turned into one of triumph, and she stood tall, knowing she was in control of her destiny. Kweku had heard of her success, and though it stung, it also reminded him of how far he had fallen. He wondered if, just maybe, she would come back, offer him a second chance. But he knew deep down that it was too late. Temira had found her own peace, her own strength, and she didn't need him anymore. She had moved on and built a life that was hers, a life where she no longer had to be the victim of betrayal. Temira, despite all that had happened, never sought revenge. She forgave Kweku in her heart because she understood that forgiveness was for her peace, not for his. But that forgiveness didn't mean she would return. She was no longer the woman who would stand by a man who betrayed her. The village, now seeing her as a role model, celebrated her strength. They rallied around her, offering support, admiration, and respect. Temira had become a symbol, not just of a woman who overcame hardship, but of a woman who rose above it all, never looking back and never settling for less than she deserved. As for Kweku, he was left to face the bitter consequences of his actions. His world, once full of dreams, was now a desolate place of regret and solitude. The village had forgotten his name, but they would forever remember Temira's story, a story of a woman who was broken, but who rose stronger than anyone ever imagined. What Temira's story teaches us is that even in our darkest moments, we hold the power to rise, rebuild, and reclaim our happiness. She didn't just survive the pain, she transformed it into strength, grace, and success. The betrayal she faced was devastating, but instead of allowing it to break her, she turned it into her greatest triumph. Her journey reminds us that no matter what life throws at us, we can always rise above it, stronger and wiser. If Temira's story touched your heart, remember that you are not alone in your struggles. Take her courage as inspiration in your own life, and never let betrayal or hardship define you. Embrace your strength and keep moving forward, because you too have the power to create your own beautiful story. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales of resilience, love, and strength. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories that inspire and uplift. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Together, let's spread positivity and hope to everyone around us. Keep shining, and see you in the next video.